Hello, everyone. So today we actually have a very interesting and skilled guest, Kurtis Joseph. Now, Kurtis, you're a sorcerer, an author, and you really
You
seem to
really
know
seem to
your
know your
stuff.
stuff.
So
So
I really appreciate you coming to the channel, and I thank you for being here.
Oh yeah, man, you're welcome. It's an honor, I'm very approachable and I like to be that way. I mean, this is why I do what I do, to help educate others and spread information, man. Yeah, so for sure, you're welcome. Mhm.
That's exactly why I do what I do. And
Yeah.
so let's just go ahead and dive into your path. Now, how can you describe the path that you follow and the being or beings that you work with? Just give us a little bit of information on that.
Well, my specific path is actually very unique and complex. I have 166 patrons that I work with. Um, Cain, the Witch Father, along with the Clifothic rulers, the rulers of the Tree of Life, along with the 72 Goetic Jinn, as well as the 72 angels of the Shemhem Farash. Uh, I put a lot of emphasis on what I call the one dragon and consider all of these beings as scales on the body of the one. My path is heavily influenced by Eastern warrior traditions as well. And I really like to keep a balance between light and darkness because I look at some of the most powerful traditions. Norse mythology would be one example. The Afro-Brazilian traditions would be one example. Voodoo. And these traditions really do not limit themselves to light or dark. And I think that's what makes them so powerful. So in essence, I borrow from those traditions in a way as well, conceptually.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I actually identify with that as well. I do have this certain balance in my own path. So getting into, so how did you get into just walking any of these paths in general? How are you introduced? Do you think a being actually chose you or sought you out first? Or was it some kind of catalyst in your life that kind of rocketed you towards working with all these different beings and on these paths?
Well, that's a very good question. I think there's a difference between someone who gets into the occult and someone who is born with the occult in them. I remember when I was 5 years old, man, I would look out my window at night and a house would be there that was not there during the day. And this hag would essentially look out the window and stare at me, almost to try and strike fear into my soul, man. I mean, at that age, it was just terrifying. And so, yeah, I've always had a connection to beings on the other side. I've had clairvoyant experiences throughout my entire life. So that's pretty much how I feel. I really didn't get into the occult. The occult was always in me. So external influences and observing society as it is imposed upon us showed me what I was not, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm
All of these,
partly referring to the Abrahamic traditions, the religions that kind of
yeah,
are more of a blockage to human development than actually help us realize ourselves. Which,
yeah.
anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was the social construct, the religious and societal construct that showed me what I was not, which helped me to come to know myself, my own unique gifts. And so, yeah, I mean, I honestly love to just find what works for me as an individual. And what I found is that, I've been initiated into many different systems and styles of magic. I like to think of my current way of doing things as being a representation of the breath of the dragon, that common denominator that weaves through all traditions.
So when you say breath of the dragon, are you talking about a particular dragon, or are you talking about a current in general?
Well, I use the term dragon not as a mythical beast. To me, I use that as a concept, a symbol which represents true divinity, which people really are not finding through religious dogma. So it's more of a reference to totality, the totality of light and darkness, which when we attain that in the flesh, I call that Draco-Kadmon. It's somebody who awakens and embodies the potential of creation and destruction, reaping and sowing, blessing and blight. Even the warrior traditions and the warrior arts, what a lot of people don't understand is that the primary end goal of all military arts is actually healing. These things are mutually dependent and not mutually exclusive. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that, buddy. It's really logic to me.
That makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And so we talked about this briefly before we started the video, but do you think the way that people view the so-called right hand, so-called left hand path is kind of flawed? Because I think that the funny thing is I considered myself on the right hand path for a long time, but what I found is that I found more in the so-called left hand path that I could identify with, and I found less restrictions. And most of the people that I know are actually on the quote unquote left hand path, but it feels like a wrong way of looking at, these different ways of being and this duality that we're actually inheriting from religions. What is your view on this idea of the separation between the left and the right?
I think it's silly. When we look into a mirror, there is a reflection. Without the reflector, the reflected would not exist. And I think it's very limited. For instance, this Kabbalistic point of view between the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Are you talking about the tree of, like Qliphoth?
Yeah, the Qliphoth. Yeah, the Qliphoth. Qliphoth and Kabbalah. I'm sorry, buddy. My daughter's here.
It's okay.
I am a father, ladies and gentlemen.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I don't know, baby. Daddy will come out and help you fix it and find some more games that are more compatible with your level, okay? Give me a little bit. Now my familiar's outside the door. Shut the door for Daddy, please. A little embarrassing.
It's okay.
It happens a lot. But, yeah. So, okay, where were we? Oh, Kabbalah, Qliphoth. This is a very dualistic view that honestly doesn't make sense, because when you look at these reality maps, they are spheres of planetary power. Mercury is always Mercury. We're just coming out of Mercury retrograde. Mm-hmm. Mercury is Mercury, whether it's in its natural orbit or it seems to be going backwards in relationship to us. It's the same power. So the difference really remains in understanding that the left and the right are one and the same. And when you are cherry picking and deciding whether or not you are either a white magician or a black magician, you are limiting your own personal power. That is in no way logical for people who claim to be seeking empowerment. I mean, let's face it, there's not, when you shun either or, that would be like
choosing food over water.
Yeah, it would be like shutting down either the Ida or the Pingala, one of the twin serpents within the yogic tradition.
The Nardis, yeah.
Yeah, you're never going to reach a state of illumination or higher knowledge by doing that. And I think that construct is in place for a reason. And people need to understand that in order to unite and come together and actually be able to change things, even if we choose not to work with angels or demons, we need to accept those that do so that we can come together and create the needed change in the world.
That's why a dialogue is so important, because without a dialogue, both sides lose a vast amount of knowledge that we could have about each other. And then once somebody has enough knowledge, they start to realize how everybody is very similar. I think there's this old quote that says, the more you know, the more you realize how things are the same. The less you know, the more you think that they are different.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of plays into what you're talking about, correct?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, and the more you come to know, the more you realize you know nothing.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the totality, you're trying to understand divinity. Then you are understanding that it's nothing. It is nothingness. It is no thing. How do you understand that? You can't. All you can do is look inward and wield it in the moment and tap into the potential you have the power to tap into. And that's really my entire point with this, is that when you have a limited point of view, while you might grow on one hand, literally, either right or left, you are going to be completely out of balance with the other.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, are there like a few different beings that you are especially drawn to, or do you feel like you work with who will benefit you most of the time, or who you think you need to attune yourself to at the time? Is there a few beings that you tend to draw, like, are you just drawn naturally towards?
Well, my path is a path of devotion. I devote myself daily to four entities. The one dragon, Lucifer and Belial, the red and the black dragon.
So when you say the one dragon, are we talking about Tiamat, or are we talking about something else?
You can say Tiamat. You can say Tihom. Um, I prefer not to utilize a name for the dragon, because then I'm limited to cultural perception and ideology.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why I don't name it. I don't consider it him or her either. We could say Leviathan. But yeah, Lucifer and Belial are the beginning of manifestation. When I was working with Belial, one of the things he said is that if there is a God and there is a devil, Lucifer is God and I am the devil. He never said that he was a Satan. And then there is Cain, who is the mover and shaker within my system of doing things, because he is said to have walked the earth as a human being. So Cain is very important. The title I use for him is Draco Cadmon. I don't see him as, primarily the left-hand reaper like a lot of anti-cosmic guys do. Though I respect them for what they're doing, definitely, dude. But he is more than that to me, because he also plants seeds and sows and has great power for counter creation and changing things in a way that benefits me. So yeah, if I have four primary beings to choose from, it would be those four.
So,
And I devote myself to them daily.
yeah. Of course, you know that Kaliman, Odin are my main patrons. Of course, I work with other gods and spirits. So what you mentioned about names is very interesting. Names being limiting labels that we put on something, which kind of limits our connection to them. So a lot of people think that Lucifer, Satan, Beelzebub are the same being. They're just called by different names. I imagine that you have some insight on that, and if that has any relevancy, are they different sides to the same being, or are they completely split as far as their energy, as far as what they want, and as far as like what they do?
Yeah, sure, man. The abyss is a good way to explain this. If you look at the abyss as a literal dark body of water, it is the source of all daemons. Now, when I say daemons, I don't mean just the infernal. I mean angels and demons, though I don't usually use those two terms. I use the word daemon. So as a magician, when you're working with a specific name, it's kind of like taking a glass of water and dipping it into the abyss. You are tapping into potentials that exist within the no thing that permeates all that is. And it's kind of like tapping into the specific energies, possibilities, and potentials that you need in the now. Without the name, we could not deconstruct that name and get to the power that is behind it, because the name helps to tap into its specific vibrational frequency and bandwidth, so to speak.
So do you think it feels like humans naturally need some way to differentiate things so that we can understand them? Do you think it's a human need and that's why we use these names, because we can better understand something if we view it as separate? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It definitely is a human need. It is. Because we live in a plane of existence that is programmed as being very dualistic. When mankind starts to get beyond the dualism, I think that'll change. The vibrational frequency of the earth, the dragon lines within the earth will ignite with draconian fire and increase the earth plane's vibrational frequency. But right now we are very dense and not very malleable. That is because we essentially depend on the separation of Satan and Baal and Belial and Lucifer. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They all come from the same abyss.
Does this density you're talking about in regards to Earth, as far as Earth's energy, is that what makes it hard for a lot of beings to manifest here fully? Because it's hard to get in, or are they just they just don't want to right now? I mean, I know there's different levels of power we're talking about, but is it difficult to manifest here because the energy of Earth is so dense and not malleable?
Well, yeah, that's it, man. Honestly, they don't fit here. They don't fit here. Like, I have a specific key. I have secrets in regard to a manifestation basis. Mm-hmm. But you're still not going to get a physical manifestation, though the manifestations that you perceive definitely can seem that way. For instance, each spirit's name is associated with Hebrew letters. Each Hebrew letter is associated with various herbs. So I build incense blends or manifestation bases around the sequences of the Hebrew letters within their name. This creates a manifestation base that represents them specifically. And that leads to more intense rites of evocation for me. That's what I have found. That's what they have taught me to do. That's what I do. So my apothecary, there's 22 herbs in it at all times. I don't really need any more than that. That way I have a group of plants that I can master and work with for both baneful and beneficial purposes. So yeah, the dense plane definitely is the reason why they don't manifest here physically like you and I, but they are definitely here when we call them.
That makes a lot of sense. And I kind of wanted to keep it below 20 minutes, so I think we're going to end it right here. I mean, you've given me a lot of insight. You've given, I'm sure, the audience a lot of insight. And I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. And we'll talk for a little bit after we end the video. Is there any advice you want to give to the listeners as far as following their own spiritual path in closing?
Yeah. I would like to say follow your heart, and then follow your mind. Don't listen to dogma. Seek empowerment everywhere in all things. And that's going to help you step into the full potential of who you are. And that's what's most important. You want to walk a path of self-actualization and not be a follower. At this point in time, within this aeon, we need leaders who are aware of their own potential. And that's the advice I have, bro.
Excellent. Hey, thank you very much for being on the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And
You're welcome.
perhaps we'll make future videos and also
Yeah,
get some more information out. That would be excellent.
for
And
sure.
yeah, that sounds awesome. So everybody watching, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to shoot down in the comment section below on YouTube. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'll take a look at them. Perhaps Joseph will also look at them.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you very much for watching and hope all of you have a great day.